Welcome to the Straight from the Source's Mouth podcast. Frank talk about sex and dating.
All right. Welcome to episode number 8 of Straight from the Source's Mouth podcast. My name is Tamara, and today we'll be talking about alpha and beta males. I will be sharing what I've heard about that topic from an AskMen.com article a long time ago. And we'll also talk about are alphas being demonized right now, and just different definitions and discussions in general. And we'll see where it goes. I have Alan and Carissa with me today, so we'll get started. And as I mentioned, the AskMen.com article described it as women would prefer a challenge, but there's positive challenge and negative challenge. And if you can't get the positive challenge, which is like a small fraction of the male population, then rather than choosing a too nice guy, which some people like a challenge, so they choose the negative challenge / assholes instead because they want a challenge of some kind. And then I know Alan and I talked about this topic, and that's why we're starting this today. Is he mentioned that he believes alphas are being demonized right now. So I don't know if you want to start with that, Alan, or do you want to talk about definitions of what you see in alpha male?
Yeah, well, a little of both, I think. Yes, the demonization of alphas is there. I think we see it in a lot of the TV shows right now, where you see the male and female, and of course the male is always portrayed as stupid and the female is always kind of the one that takes charge and tells the male what to do because he doesn't know what to do. And I suppose people find that funny, but I think after a certain amount of time of that, they start to see that as being sort of a real thing. And I experienced that personally in my life. And also, so to define an alpha male, I think there's a lot of ways to do that. But I think that, masculinity in general is kind of being demonized, just in my opinion. But to define the alpha male, an alpha male is generally going to be very decisive, able to make decisions. Decision making is a big one, I run across a lot of males in my life that just cannot give a simple yes or no answer. There's no yes or no. There's nothing is my fault. The alpha male is good at taking credit as well as blame. They can do both. They make the decision, they take the credit or the blame. I see men out there who follow their wives around. Literally, they walk behind them. And it seems more of like a mother-child relationship to me, rather than a partner relationship. So these are the things that I just see right now, just kind of scratching the surface. So yeah, that's kind of just my opinion to start things off.
Yeah, and I was going to say, I did notice that in commercials lately too. Like every commercial is like, I don't know what to do. And the woman's like, do this. And movies are a lot more of women taking charge. And that goes back of years of the woman not doing that. So we're trying to make up for it. But now I think, especially young boys, probably see themselves as, like the weaker sex now. And I've heard that from parents of boys, whereas kind of the opposite, where the men or the boys feel like the weaker, less popular. Go ahead, Carissa.
So number one, thank you for having me on again, Tamara. I appreciate it. I agree somewhat with Alan in the fact that in commercials and TV and things like that, that is a very generalized, version of a relationship that we're portraying right now on television. I have a son who is trying to come into his adulthood, and my now husband was kind of an alpha male when we got married, made strong decisions. We were equal partners, etc. And then it devolved into that type of relationship where I had to make all the decisions, and any decision I made that went wrong, I was blamed, etc. But I don't need to go into that whole thing. But my son, I really feel that right now boys are being forgotten in helping them become, good, positive men, and not the negative alpha type males. I mean, he makes decisions quite quickly, and can be adamant about it. And I'm trying to nurture the jerk out of him. But as a single mom, he doesn't have good male role models to really show him that. And so I don't want him watching those kinds of things on TV because that's not how he should behave. So to get to that point, like you said, I think, raising boys right now is very difficult, especially if they just have a single mom, because there's not a good male role model either. Like I have to find one and get him involved with them a lot, but on TV there really aren't, and there are a lot of forums demonizing women online, and I can't prevent him from going there. So it's very hard, I think, for young men trying to come into themselves right now.
Yeah. And something that I've noticed, so my sister-in-law has several brothers. It's very apparent that their wives run the show. And the problem that I notice is that the more they run the show, the more pissed off they get. It's like they have this control, but they want these men to stick up for themselves, to say no, to make their own decisions. And the more they don't, the more these women get mad, the more they control them, and I mean, I see it, at least it's my opinion, that's what's going on. So anyway,
I was going to say, when I was married, I was that person. And although he did stick up with himself for himself enough, but then that made us butt heads instead. But I tried to be controlling, and I always like to offer resources. So there's a book called The Surrendered Wife for this very topic, women that want to control and nag. So just FYI, if this is you, I mean, it can't be pleasant for either party to have that experience. So.
Well, I was going to say, so I've been divorced now for 4 years, and in my marriage, I was always the one to make the decisions, and I was looked at as kind of being a controlling male. Now, there's two sides to every story, and my ex-wife's not here, so I'm not going to say I was perfect or anything like that. But if I did not make the decisions, no one would. And so in the end, I was looked at as a controlling male, and all of the stereotypical things that go with that. So but I have no regrets. I made a lot of good decisions and bad ones, and as I said, I took the credit and the blame all the way to the end.
Yeah, I was going to say, as financially successful women in general, we prefer like men to take charge, because we take charge in our daily lives. So we prefer men to take charge. Just FYI, for those that don't know, seek out the successful woman, because they actually appreciate the alpha male and the guys who take charge, because they do it all day long. They don't want to do it in the relationship. I've talked to lots of women in that boat. Carissa, do you have something to say in general about what we just talked about?
Yes, I think I'm very similar. I mean, I'm making decisions all day long. I understand that there are decisions that the wife needs to make. There are decisions that the husband need to make, and there really needs to be a good equal partnership and good communication. I think even partners that come in maybe unequal into the relationship, that they can develop themselves into equal partners. But I really have a problem, like with my former relationship, in that, like, all of a sudden I was making all the decisions, and I was like, wait a minute. This is, no person in a relationship wants to be making all the decisions. And I really I don't like the real long, strong, drawn out maybe. And then I have to make a decision, and then it's almost too late, and then it's a hot mess. I don't know. Equal partnership. Yes, I don't want some passive aggressive partner not doing anything.
And I find it interesting too, Carissa, that you say that he started out being able to make those decisions and do that in the relationship, and then why do you think he morphed into more of that beta side?
So I think three reasons. Number one, there's some serious mental health happening that I wasn't aware of before we got married. He never told me about. Number two, I wanted to like he would be hiding. I wouldn't say hiding information, but he wasn't sharing information. I would ask questions about, where are we financially? How are we doing this? What do we want to, like, what are our goals and aspirations for the future? Let's like have a plan, because I'm a very goal oriented person, and I like to know where we're going. And then number three, um, you know, I mean, it could have been that I started becoming more demanding and nagging because he wasn't answering those questions. So I take responsibility for that for sure. Um, I mean, because I do have kind of a dominant personality. So I think it was all a combination of all three of those reasons. Now, as I try and enter the dating scene, I'm very aware of how I might be coming off as maybe somebody in a sitcom like that, being a demanding woman going, "You need to do that." Um, so I really try hard not to. So I'm aware of myself. I'm doing a lot of work to make sure and know what I'm doing in order that might sabotage a relationship, because I do want to have a good equal relationship with someone.
Yeah.
Yeah, as I say, I know there's the argument that some people say there shouldn't be equals, but then others, men are from Mars, women are from Venus. It's, pretty old, but they were saying the men should do the manly stuff, the women should do the womanly stuff, which I actually think kind of works. And I prefer the man to lead and take charge myself. Go ahead, Carissa.
In relation to that, I have a lot of opinions about that one, but there are in a relationship, it's not always 50-50. It might be 80-20 on one side and then 80-20 to the other side. And there's a lot of balance and shifting that's happening a lot depending on the situation. And the partners have to really know and acknowledge and communicate with each other in order to make those things happen and not feel one. I think that especially right now, a lot of women are emasculating their husbands or partners, because that is our culture right now. um, and I only notice it because I'm a mother of a son who's coming into that right now. And so I mean, I just think it's never going to be 50-50, but the partnership, you're both trying to maintain a household, you're both trying to maintain careers usually. And so you've really got to have a good communication so that you know who's handling what, who's going, who's on first,
Yeah.
what's on second.
Yeah.
So.
And you can go with strengths there. Like if you happen to be good at the manly-ish stuff, and then, just go by the strengths. Go ahead, Alan.
I raised two sons, and going back to when they were small, I just cannot imagine myself saying, well, son, you're a boy, but if you want to be a girl, that's okay. And hey, I don't mean to, to offend anyone here. If someone wants to do that, that's fine. I really don't care. We're all free, independent individuals. But I think that would have been horribly confusing to them. I raised my sons to be men. They're both now independent, good, contributing young men. I just can't imagine it being any other way. So to tell them if they want to be a girl, they can. I mean, I just don't understand that. I really don't.
And we'll say more what you mean
They were
by
born
being. You mean the trans stuff, or you mean more of the female roles
yeah.
versus
I mean,
male
it seems
roles?
that also. Well, it also seems to being pushed now is that it's okay for boys to be girls. I mean, I guess I mean I don't really understand that, though. I understand that some males are born more effeminate. I mean I get that, and I'm not saying anything against that. Or it just seems as though to take a boy who's obviously a boy and tell him it's okay to be a girl, I just think is confusing to most kids, because when I grew up, we had boys and girls. There were boys that were more effeminate and there were girls that were more masculine, but as kids, we didn't really think anything of it. It just was what it was.
I think that's a whole nother podcast. That's what I think.
Yeah.
I have
But
strong opinions about that too, Alan.
and I guess what I'm saying here is that it's okay to be male.
Yeah, a strong male. And like the men are from Mars, women are from Venus. Like the manly stuff, they mean like the stuff that takes muscles, like taking the trash and fixing the things. I mean, obviously women know how to fix stuff nowadays. You go on YouTube, but I think it does work best when men do the manly stuff. But
Well, you talked about demonizing the non-alpha male. Maybe define what you mean by, how are we demonizing the non-alpha male?
actually, Alan thinks we're demonizing alphas, right? And betas are the ones that
Yeah,
are more prominent.
I think they're being kind of brought to the top right now. The beta male being a little more sensitive, emotional, and frankly, there's a lot of them. And I went to visit a friend yesterday who, is more like myself. And wow, it really felt good to actually be around another masculine, quote, alpha male. Because I don't feel like I get that a lot. I find myself having to pull back or tone myself down. An example here is a woman I dated a couple years ago, and she had a lot of friends. She's a very nice lady, but I noticed that all of her lady friends had men who, and I use that term loosely, they were males. Most of them, they didn't work. They were just supported by their wives, and getting in a room full of them, I really had to tone it back. I really did. It was difficult for me to have conversations with beta males. It just was very hard to do, because they would either get scared or be offended, and I just wasn't there to do that.
Yeah, I was just going to say, if Daniel were here, and I know he has strong opinions on this, he says that women want to F alphas, but they want to mate long-term with betas because they want someone to take care of them. But, and I talk about the show Sex Life on Netflix too, where that dichotomy is portrayed quite clearly. But any thoughts on that particular topic?
I don't quite know how to verbalize this, so I'm just going to be direct in that I think many women who are successful in their career, strong personalities, making decisions, either nag or I don't like psychologically beat down alpha males. They're just like, F it. I'm like, I'm just going to let her do it. And I'm just going to, whatever. I don't have to do anything. She's going to take care of me and fine. So I think sometimes as women, we don't realize that we need that in a partner. And I think then we get angry, and because I know that's as my husband started to taking a major decline, and I was like, what am I doing wrong? Like, how do I get him to stop this? But then I was nagging him because he didn't do a thing. So I think there's a push pull in that whole conversation, in that we self-sabotage as women, and we may be turning some of those, maybe not super alpha males, but bringing, some strong masculine men back down into, you're just subservient to me. And I don't like to that. And I don't like to see that. And I think, Alan, to your point, it's hard for men, I think, right now.
Yeah, that whole happy wife, happy life thing. Like I talk about that in my stand-up, how that's, not the ideal. They just put up and shut up. And I mean, I'm sure and I've been not accused, but I don't want to say all men. None of us say are all men or all women. There's some betas and some alphas that do different things. So, but do you have any thoughts on Chris's comments, Alan?
Not really, except to, I agree. I can kind of agree where some alpha males may do that. Just kind of sit back and say, well, she's going to take care of it. Wow. I could only wish I would have experienced some of that though, because I never have. I mean, I've seen it, but I haven't experienced it because in dating, it's just not the same as being married, And so in my marriage, again, it was just me, all the decisions all the time, making good decisions, never getting credit, making bad decisions, getting beat over the head, So it was almost as if it's like she was sitting back waiting for a bad decision so she could clobber me. But yeah, I could see that with some alpha males sitting back and being subservient, and I have seen that actually, but not experienced it.
Yeah, because we haven't talked much about the beta male, and I don't have a true definition except for, they just like, I think a younger generation is raised to be thinking that's fine, and I'm sure it's fine for them, but yeah, the idea of staying home with the kids and then have the wife work and just, the equal partnership, as in, like, some men, there's a few podcasts out there and YouTube channels about the alpha male that think it's ridiculous that men would wash dishes and do things around the house. And I'm sure there's a fine balance, like you're talking about, Carissa, where like some roles could be equaled out, but it doesn't mean, I don't know. Any thoughts on that particular?
Wow, yeah. I never had any problem with doing dishes or anything like that. Matter of fact, that's kind of an OCD thing for me. I like a clean house and all that stuff, and I have no problem doing it. But I have no problem either going out and fixing shingles on the roof or, cutting the grass, doing all those other things, fixing the car. I mean, these are all things that I had to do because, there was never the money early on with young kids and all that to do it. But yeah.
I was going to say, I don't know if anyone else is feeling this, but I'm like, it seems like you two should date. You're both like, I mean, no, I'm not trying to put you on the spot, but
right.
We have to be in the same state, I think.
Right. Yeah.
But it just seems like you would complement each other well.
That's funny. Well, thank you for the compliment. I appreciate that.
Yes.
I think another, as I think about it, is the fact that, so being in the central Midwest, it's, you get out, like, you go to high school, you go to college to get your MRS, you get married, you then have a family, you're buying a house, you have a family, like, here's what you need to do. Like, and literally every person, as soon as you get into college, it's like, oh, are you dating? Do you have a boyfriend? When are you getting married? And it drove me crazy. So then when I moved to, a major urban environment, I was the last one of my friends to get married. And that was at 28. And at this point in my life, I'm like, that was really young. Like, wow, that was really young. Well, I think now people, men and women, are waiting a lot longer, to a lot older ages, to get married, in their 30s, mid 30s, sometimes even late 30s. And you've really established your own personal routine, and you know, you've learned how to keep your own house. You've learned how to fix certain things. You've, taken care of all sorts of things. So then you're trying to bring two households together in addition to a relationship. And so it's like, wait, we got to really talk about who's going to give up what and how we're going to manage that. And I believe that I think that's a big problem with a lot of relationships, is the communication is all on your phone, and it's like, hey, I'm going to text you to wash the dishes, or I'm going to text you to go take the garbage out, instead of having an actual conversation. And I think that's a huge problem right now, because, like I said, trying to get that out of my son big time. It's like, look me in the eyeballs, because I want to talk to you to go take care of these things. Like, right now, you don't want to wash dishes. Fine. You're part of this household. Then get outside, go mow the lawn, go water the plants, go take out the garbage, clean your room, whatever. But I think a big problem, back to my original point, the big problem is we're waiting so long to get married, that people are really established in their own routine, and they don't know how to communicate the balance of what they need to do with their partner.
That makes sense. Yeah, definitely. And, there used to be a bigger separation of roles. To me, and we're not talking about the alpha female here, but, the separation of roles, like a woman who stays home and takes care of kids in the house, in my opinion, that's an alpha female. I mean, that is not an easy thing to do, and you don't see it much anymore. That, to me, is a woman who takes her family very serious, because the alpha male, that's one thing about an alpha male. The family is everything to the alpha male. The alpha male is extremely protective of his family. Sometimes maybe even a little overprotective. It's hard to help. So that separation of roles like that, I don't think is always a bad thing. I really don't think it is.
Yeah, I agree with you. And then to Carissa's comment, communication has been a factor in every single episode I've done. And obviously that's, key. And like you said, the more people are on their phones, the less they learn to actually communicate in person. Us older generation knows how to do it, but we've kind of reverted probably back, because I definitely text more than call nowadays. But yeah, communication is definitely key to survive and thrive in relationships.
Well, yeah. It is. And I see people today, they walk around and they clutch their phone in their hand. I mean, it's not even in their pocket or in their purse. They're clutching it as if that is just their lifeline. I mean, white knuckle clutching it. Yeah. No way for a husband and wife to communicate or.
Yeah, unless you're.
And I like what you said, Carissa, about look me in the eyes, I mean, that's a big one, Don't look at the ground. Don't look at your phone. Look me in the eyes. We're speaking. That's a big one.
Yeah. So we're getting close to the time where we usually end. So I'll ask for final comments. Do you want to start? Actually, Alan, since you're the one that had the idea for this podcast, do you have any final comments you just wanted to kind of reiterate or make? Or
I just want to say that it's okay to be masculine. It's okay to be an alpha male, but don't be a dick. I mean, that's the big part of it. I think that's what society thinks when they view alpha masculinity. It's going to be a jerk. And yes, those guys are out there. They misuse that gift that they're given. But that's not the way all alpha males are.
Yeah, totally agree. And Carissa, your final thoughts?
I would agree with Alan. Yeah. I'm a big proponent of character, and both alpha and beta males have shitty characters, and so I don't want to date either one of them. So I do want someone, and I think because I think I'm more of an alpha woman, which is I think both a plus and a minus. That I need somebody who has a strong sense of self and personality that can be an equal partner to me. And I think that's something that each person needs to work on to say, okay, this is the type of person that I need. And Daniel, I'm just going to bring Daniel back into this, is in a previous podcast about sex and dating, is there's online dating and then there's offline dating. And I think the key is we've lost our ability to offline date. And so you can't really tell if somebody is an alpha male or not via text until you actually are like I say, look at me in the eyeballs and talking to me. And so I think that's our biggest struggle. I think both male and female. So, I mean, I don't know. I just have a lot of thoughts about all this, and we only have like a minute left. So those are my final thoughts. Tamara, back to you.
All right. Yeah. Thank you. And yeah, obviously there's plenty more we could talk about this, and I'm sure if other people have lots of other opinions, but this was our particular take, and hopefully you enjoyed the episode, and you will check out Straight from the Source's Mouth on all the different apps out there. And of course, subscribe, follow, and I don't know what else is there to do. I know there's one other thing. Favorite it, download them. And of course, if you love it, leave a review as well. But thank you very much, Alan and Carissa, for being here. I appreciate it very much. All right. Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All righty. Bye.
Frank Talk, sex and dating educates.